Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Anything Blows. My name's Andrew Ika, and today I'm proud to be joined by a very special guest on the channel, Dennis the Great Buzukja. Not only Dennis the Great Buzukja, but UFC fighter Dennis the Great Buzukja, which hits hard and it hits home. Dennis, we have last seen out, since we last spoke to him, we've last seen him out on Cage Fighting Championships and make his UFC debut. So first and foremost, Dennis, how are you?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me, first of all.
I'm great. Thank you so much. Means a lot to have you back on. I remember the Ring of Combat posters, and now you're finally in the UFC, which means the world to me. So, first and foremost, just before I go on to your upcoming bout, I'm going to take you back a little bit. Since we last spoke, you've fought twice. So talk about Cage Fighting Championships 120. You won via submission. And it was on the undercard of Wilson Derjone, fellow Albanian and Albanian champion.
Yeah. I fought that night. They had told me, the UFC had told me that I'm on the short notice call. Like whenever someone pulls out, they'll call me. So I was just booking fights, staying ready, just stacking up the wins, experience, building the record, building myself as a fighter, building my confidence, and that opportunity came up. I love CFFC. I've always known they've been a great promotion. So when the opportunity came up, I jumped on it. We had a good opponent, tough opponent, Russian guy, and we shined that night.
And I love to see it. And I just saw in your highlight reels and people retagging you, you're just running around the arena. How much did that mean to you after that win?
Yeah, it was everything, man. Like I knew I was getting finishes, but I was like, I want to get another finish. And with a big crowd there, it was a huge Albanian crowd. I sold a lot of tickets that fight. It was actually sold out. So many people came to the door and they couldn't come in because there was no more tickets. Like they drove 3 hours, 4 hours, so many of them. And they couldn't even come in because it was sold out. So many Albanians in there. And I had the flag and the people were going crazy, and I just felt it. I was like, let me run around, put on a show, just embrace the moment. And it was nice. It was a beautiful night. I'll always remember that night.
I love to hear it, and that reminisces of a fellow Albanian we have in the UK here, a boxer, Florian Marku. He sold out York Hall, which is 1,200, 1,500. He sold about 3,000 tickets. They were outside. They had to delay the fight by 30 minutes, and they still couldn't get them all in. They tried to squeeze as many as possible, and that is crazy, man. That is unbelievable support, and it just shows how many people have been supporting you from the beginning of your career and will continue to support you, and I love that. So before I go on to your UFC debut, you say that there. Why is it so important for you? Obviously, as Albanians, we know, but why is it so important to raise that red and black flag? Florian Marku on TikTok always says, ahead of his fights, Merni Flamort me vete, which means bring the flag with you. Why is it so important to have that red and black flag and represent our nation?
I was born in America. I was born in New York City. But to have that culture and to know your roots, to know where you come from, to have the people like we have and everything our culture has been through, all the war and all the suffering, even now, all the suffering that our people go through, to have some type of positive representative and influence and someone doing big things in the world and to represent them, it just gives a sense of hope, a sense of love, and a sense of inspiration to the people. And that's what I feel, and people feel that when I win, and I feel it when they come support me and the response I get from everyone around the world. So it gives me a why. It gives me a sense of identity, a sense of fulfillment, and it's just a beautiful thing, man. Like to be doing something like that for a whole country. I'm technically in Albanian borders, the only Albanian UFC fighter.
Yes.
Of course, there's Ramiz and Ilir. Of course, they're Albanian, but technically, according to the borders, I'm the only one. So it means something, So for me to be able to represent that, it would be a shame if I didn't.
I love to hear this. Dennis, just before I get on to that question is, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because I've supported you from the beginning, and I knew this day would come. I didn't know how quick it'd come. I was crying. I was in tears. I was emotional. You have this legacy. You have the amazing mindset you have. You're an amazing individual, and I feel like God has done this because you are. I could not have chosen a most better Albanian to represent our nation. And I say again, you add on to the list of Jordan Shaqiri, Granit Xhaka, Dua Lipa, Rita Ora, Adam Yashari, George Kastriot, and Dennis Buzukja, and you're an Albanian legend. And I said it when I first came in contact with you, and I said it to your father recently, and I truly believe it. And if they don't make it, I'm gonna pay as much as I can to make it. We need a statue of you in Shkodër, and like George Kastriot has in Tehran. We need one in Shkodër of you because you're a national hero, you're a national icon, you're inspiring our people. I could literally go a whole podcast for an hour just talking about Albania and what you've done for our nation. So again, I said, like Mike Tyson's remembered around the world, Dennis Buzukja on Clan Kosovo on Top Channel, you'll forever be remembered in Albania around the villages. The name Dennis Buzukja lives on forever. You've done your bloodline proud, and the Americans and New Yorkers in the United States and a new generation of Albanians. So just before I go on to your UFC debut, again, you mentioned why it's so important to represent Albania. Why is it important to do the Albanian Eagle?
It's just who we are, man. You know, Shqipnia, we're Shqiptars, we're Shqipas. We call each other Shqipa. Like, we are Eagles. We're the sons of the Eagles. So it's just it's our symbol, you know, the double-headed eagle with the hands. It just represents us, you know. It's who we are. It's what we do. And again, it's a sign of unity for us. When we throw it up, it's just everyone feels a sense of pride wherever Albanians are in the world, whether they know me or not, whether they've seen me. But when they see that, especially at the highest stage in the game, in the world, it just means something to represent it in front of the whole world. So that's what it means to me.
God bless you, champ. So now we move on to August the 5th, I believe it was, or August the 6th, your UFC debut in Nashville. Talk a little bit about that. And first and foremost, how did you get the call? Because I saw in your little documentary on YouTube, how did you get the call, the email, and how did you find out that you were called up on such short notice?
It was crazy because it was Tuesday. The fight was Saturday. Tuesday, I had went back to Staten Island. I live in Long Island. I went back to Staten Island to pick up my family. I dropped them off at the airport on Tuesday because they were going to Albania. And it was the first time really in our lives. My brother's 13 now. He went as a little kid, maybe like 3, 4 years old, so he didn't really remember it. But it was the first time we were all gonna, well, not all of us, but the rest of my family was going. And, you know, you never know what the future brings, man. Maybe, God forbid, illness or sickness or busy with work or injuries, or you never know what comes up in the future. And I was so upset. I'm like, man, the first time in my life my family's going all together, and I'm like, I can't make it because I'm on call for short notice, and I can't risk being there, not training, and then get the call and then not be ready. I was like, I have to stay back and stay ready. So I dropped them off at the airport on Tuesday, and I went and I had gotten some sushi because I was like, yo, it's Tuesday night. We usually box sparring Tuesday night. So I was like, I'm going to train hard tonight. Let me get some carbs. Let me get some food in my system. Let me eat up so I'll have some energy. So I had like 4 sushi rolls, like a yellowtail jalapeno appetizer. I filled up soy sauce and everything. And then as I'm on my way to the gym, my manager texts me, yo, you want to go to Nashville? And I said, and I knew what he meant. And I was like, LOL, what's going on in Nashville? And I knew the fights were on, and Sean Woodson was having problems with opponents. But I was like, what's going on in Nashville? And he was like, Woodson's opponent's out, and Shelby wants you to fight. I was like, all right, send the contract. Let's go. And I went to the gym, and we were still waiting on word back for them to accept. So I was like, shit, should I spar? Should I continue with my hard training? But I was like, it might put me at risk. You know, what should I do? So I just got on the bike for 2 hours, and I was just pedaling. I was like, if I got to cut the weight, I got to start cutting the weight now. I got on the bike, and as I'm on the bike, my manager finally sends me the contract. I tell the team, like, yo, I finally got the call. I'm fighting Saturday. And then that's when my head started spinning. I had to handle the corners, the flights. Who's going to corner me? Who's going to come out? You know, what time am I going to fly out? I have to go back and pack all my things. I need to get a haircut because I can't go looking like a bum in the fight in my UFC debut. Get everything ready. Medicals, this, that, and the third. And it was just, my head started spinning. And then on top of that, I had to cut the weight, think about how I'm going to cut the weight, because I was 168 when they called me. We're in, 168 pounds to 146 that's 22 pounds, which is like 10 kilos, 10 kilograms. And And then my head just started spinning. And then on top of that, which was the most important thing, I had to start doing research on my opponent. Really, no time to prepare. Then my head just was spinning, just trying to handle everything. But it is what it is. I get the next morning at like 6 a.m. I go to the airport. My flight was at like 9. I get off the plane, and right away they take me to the hospital to do my blood work, my medicals, and everything. And then I finally settled in, and I started the weight cut.
I love to hear it. And one thing I want to talk about there, the weight cut, 22, 23 pounds. First and foremost, just before you go onto the actual weight cut, how much did that hurt you that you weren't able to shed off that last pound and that the doctors didn't give you the time to take that last pound off? Obviously, medical reasons, and did they fine you?
Yeah, man. It wasn't even a pound. It was 0.3 of a pound, which is like 0.2 of a kilo, like maybe not even less, like
Not
0.1 of a
even.
kilogram. Yeah, less, like 1.1 of a kilogram. And we brought the machine to buzz my hair if I needed to. But when so then the commissioner, whatever he was, he just rounded it up to 0.5, which is like half a kilogram, not even. What am I saying? A quarter of a kilogram.
Mm.
And I was like, man, if I buzz my hair, it won't even make a difference. So there was that. And then like the commission, the doctors saw how messed up I was, and they were like, listen, man, this kid can't continue with the weight cut. And yeah, they fined me 20% for the weight miss, which is fair. Like rules are rules. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I had to make weight. I couldn't complete that part, so I'm not complaining about it. It is what it is.
And how hard was that weight cut? We see 23 pounds on 3-4 days' notice. I recall the last man to do so was Paul Felder against Rafael dos Anjos. First of all, how tough was that weight cut? And second of all, your girlfriend Paula, I see on the documentary she sent you scriptures, and that broke my heart because I know how much she means to you, and I know how much you mean to me and every single Albanian in the world. And you have done us proud, and you're funny there, but you looked like a dying man. You looked like a broken man. So what kept you going? Was it her? Who was it that kept you strong enough to lose that weight?
I mean, it was a combination of everything, because I really had nothing left in me, and I had Nas there. He was like, I was literally leaning on him. He was picking me up and carrying me from the sauna blanket to the tub. I had Frivola there helping me out with everything. They were by my side through it all. Jake Fine, he was recording everything but helping out with everything. And then I was just so dead inside and so weak. And I remember texting my girlfriend Paula. I'm dying right now, like literally dying right now. I don't know if I can do any more. I was like, just start praying for me. I was like, I don't have anything left in me. So then she literally grabbed the Bible and started praying and reading the Bible, and she started sending me scriptures. And then for some reason, like they were just hitting me because I was so vulnerable, so weak, and so compromised. And like the scriptures she was sending me, it was about believing, and like, God puts us on these journeys for a reason. And it just hit me it just hit me so deep. I don't even know how to explain it. It just like touched my heart. And then I got emotional, and of course I was so compromised. Like I started tearing up a bit, crying. I was literally crying from it, reading them out loud because I needed energy. I needed strength. More, yeah, I just needed strength. And then Nas and Frivola, they started crying too, like watching
Oh.
their brother, their training partner, in so much pain and suffering and crying, like we're men at the end of the day. Like we get in a cage and we fight another professional hand-to-hand killer, unarmed combatant who's been training for us for weeks for the opponent, and we're tough at the end of the day, and then for them to see me crying and in so much pain from that weight cut, and then the emotions from the Bible scriptures, they started crying too. It was just a very emotional moment for all of us, and they were by my side through it all. I love them to death. I love Paula to death. They're my why. Everything I do is for them and for myself, of course, and for God. But they give me so much strength, and that's what it came down to. Like just remembering what I'm doing this all for.
I love to hear it, brother. And wow, that touches my heart, honestly. And I say every time for the fights that I never got to watch of yours every single night, I repost you, I'd pray for you, the weight cuts, especially this one, because I was like, what's going on with Dennis? What's going on? And I haven't heard an update. And then to hear one fighter's on the news article that's missed weight, 0.5 pounds, I think, oh, damn. Why couldn't they have given you the extra half pound? And seeing 23 pounds, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that, but obviously 4 days. Another thing I want to say there is that going back a little bit, looking where the journey's come now, does it still feel surreal or has it hit you yet?
You know, honestly, everyone, like, people ask me that and how's it feel to be in the UFC and everything, but nothing really changed, man. You know, I'm still me. And then God willing, I make $10 million tomorrow. You know, like, still, even if I do, I'll still be me. I'll always be me. I'll never change my personality and who I am as a person. But until I get a win in the UFC and I start climbing the ranks and become top 5 and champion, it'll all be the same for me, man. Like, my goal isn't to be in the UFC. My goal is to be UFC champion. So for me, everything stays the same. The goals remain the same. The work, I turn it up even more now. You know, like, the more I win and the more I progress in my life, the more it motivates me. And I'm only going to keep working harder. So really nothing changed for me except that I'm working harder than ever.
I love to hear it, and you've heard it here first, and I've got the belief in you, and you said it yourself. The first ever triple UFC champion. You're going to win 145, 155, and 170. So just before we move on to your fight, which is unreal, let's just talk about that fight on your UFC debut. Man, 23 pounds, you couldn't get stopped. You couldn't get beat. 6'3" giant. As Armando Giatia said to me, Dennis is a killer. Dennis doesn't matter. Give Dennis 8 weeks, 12 weeks. He's killing everyone. Dennis will beat anyone he's put in front of. So you don't want to hear excuses, but how was that night? And did you feel gassed? How did you feel? And yeah, I think you rocked him a little bit because he did go back a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely touched him up a bit. I landed some heavy shots on him in the first round and a few in the second and third, especially with the ground and pound. You know, no excuses, man. It is what it is. Like, he's a tough opponent as it is. Even with 8 weeks preparation, 10 weeks, he's still as tough as they come. You know, he boxed at heavyweight. He had a great record at heavyweight. He's 6'3". You know, the thing is, a style like that you have to prepare for because of the length, because of the leverage and the grappling and stuff. It's a completely different style. It's like going from driving automatic cars to manual in a matter of a day without any preparation. You know, it's like, how do you maneuver with that? So yeah, of course I felt the weight cut. You know, I was doing my morning shakeout the day of the fight, and like, I felt electricity shooting through both of my arms. And I was telling the guys, I'm like, man, my arms feel weird. Like, I can't even throw a punch. I feel like shocks in my going down to my fingers. But I was like, you know what? We all said, like, fuck it. It is what it is. We're going to fight. Like, it's all mental at this point. We're here. We're not giving up. And that fight was all really just on willpower and heart. Because I had no preparation, a bad weight cut, no sleep, really. That was probably what killed me more than anything. I didn't sleep at all that whole week since I got the call. Like, I counted it. I slept 10.5 hours the whole week. And that's what really killed me, because I just felt like in a daze. But it's all learning. It's all an experience. Obviously, I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling the story for what it is. Facts are facts. But if I was able to go through that and fight a 6'3" Woodson who's a beast and who's very underrated, he's the top 10 UFC featherweight, easily top 10 featherweight in the UFC. Very underrated guy. He just doesn't talk much, doesn't have like that cockiness that attracts people, you know what I mean? So that's why his name isn't as big as it is. But skillfully, he's one of the best in the world, and props to him. I know he's going to keep doing very well in the UFC, and he gave me a lot of respect, so I respect him for that. And yeah, man, it is what it is. So that was a huge experience and learning lesson for me going forward in my career. If I can get through that, then I could get through anybody, anything with a full camp and healthy.
I love to hear it, champ, and God bless your soul, because now you've put your name there, you've cemented your legacy. And just before I move on to this next fight, which means the world not only to you, but also to me, because it's crazy, I'm going to go into so much detail on it. But why is it so important? We picked up on it earlier. How long did you have that Kuchezi ring walk song, and why is it so important to have that out? I wish someone would have clipped it.
I started walking out to the Kuchezi song my first title fight. I was saving it. I was like, I want to walk out to my first Albanian song, like, for a big fight. And when I fought Tim Dooling for my first title, for my first my first professional belt, it felt like a big one. I had sold so many tickets that night. Like, the place was packed out. It was like, had to be at least 1,200 Albanians in there, maybe more. And from then on, it just stuck, man. Like, the crowds go crazy because there's always so many Albanians when I fight, and then you hear them chanting it and singing it in the crowd. It just gives me so much energy. I feel their energy and pride from them, pride from me, and it's like it's the perfect walkout for me.
I love to hear it. Now we move on to November the 11th, and everyone knows, UFC fans know, November cards are the MSG cards. The hometown boy, the hometown hero, born and raised in New York, going to fight on UFC 295, Stipe Miocic versus John Jones for the heavyweight title, a legacy fight. And again, now a legacy fight for yourself to get your first ever win in the UFC against Jamal Emmers. First and foremost, what does it mean are you on the prelims or are you in the main card? How does it feel being at Madison Square Garden?
I'm sure I'll be on the prelims. You know, I'm sure they're going to stack the pay-per-view pretty crazy. It's my second UFC fight, so I'm sure I'll be in the prelims. But this is a dream come true. This is something I've always dreamed about, fighting as a UFC fighter from New York in MSG, the most famous arena in the world, and on such a huge card with John Jones, which is supposedly his last fight, his retirement fight. So to be doing this on such a big card and being the only New Yorker on the card, it means so much. And I'm looking at this as my UFC debut with a full camp. You know, I'm considering this my real UFC debut. And over the years, ever since Conor fought Eddie at the Garden for the first UFC event in New York, I've always manifested and dreamt of my UFC debut being at MSG. And my thoughts turned into a reality, and here we are now, November 11th. I'm making my UFC debut at Madison Square Garden in New York, where I grew up. How many times I've been to the Garden, I can't even tell you, for fights or for shows, for comedy shows, for music. I grew up in the Garden. You know, I grew up in New York. This is my home. Like, I know the city like the back of my hand. And to be fighting here and representing not only Albania, but New York, where I grew up, it's just destiny. It feels like destiny because I've always dreamt of it. And I feel like I manifested this to be making my fight, what feels to be my UFC debut in my hometown.
I love to hear it, and that is so iconic because it's every child's dream to headline or, well, to sell out, which you'll do in future, but to be in a sold out pay-per-view card in your hometown. So how do you evaluate your opponent, Jamal Emmers?
What was the question? How I found out? What I find out about him? What'd you say?
How do you evaluate him? How are you looking at this guy?
He's tough. He's well-rounded. He has a lot of experience. He's up there in age. He's 34, which is considered the prime now for fighters. He's mentally in his prime, physically in his prime, so it's definitely not an easy fight. I think he got robbed his last fight, so I'm looking at him as a 20 wins, 6-loss record. A lot of experience, a lot of wins. He fought a lot of tough guys. He's no walk in the park, you know what I mean? But just it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter who's in there. It could be anybody right now. Like, just me on a full camp and the hunger that I have right now, coming off of a loss, and the fact that it's in my home and I have to show up and I have to perform and I have to put on a show. It doesn't matter who's gonna be in there regardless. I'm gonna knock them out, and I'm gonna be as prepared as possible and just go do what I do best, and that's beat people up.
I love to hear it, champ. And how many New Yorkers, how many American fans of yours and Albanians do you expect to be there just for you?
Oh man, I have people, like, once the tickets went on sale, I have so many people sending me screenshots of the tickets they bought. Like, Capital T himself bought 10 tickets, man, like from Europe. He's coming from Europe to just for the fights, just to watch me. So I'm just having support. People are flying in, people from all over. And the cheapest ticket is like $900, bro. Like, the nosebleeds, like the top cheapest nosebleed is $900 US. So it's obviously not cheap by any means. And people are buying 10 tickets at a time, 6 tickets, one guy, 8 tickets, another guy. People spending $10,000 just on tickets. So it's a beautiful thing, you know, how much people support me and believe me. Like, they put their money where their mouth is, and I'm just so grateful for it, man. Like, I'm gonna put on a beautiful performance and a beautiful show for everybody.
I can't wait for it, Dennis, and I love that, and I love your mindset, and that is unreal because I have seen the prices they've skyrocketed, and obviously Jones's last fight supposedly. So just for I move on a little bit, who do you have winning that main event, Jones or Miocic, and does the winner cement the legacy as the greatest heavyweight of all time?
Look, man, it's a tough fight. You know, Miocic is older now. He's been very inactive for whatever reasons. You know, he hasn't fought in a while. I love both guys. You know, you love to see the underdog win because Miocic is the underdog and he's Croatian. You know,
Mm.
you'd love to see it win. He's the greatest heavyweight of all time. But then again, you have John Jones, who's the greatest of all time, period. And what he's done, no one will ever do. Become the youngest champ and stay so dominant for so long, just dismantling everybody. I want to see both guys win, and I'd hate to see either guy lose. So I love them both. I just wish them both health. I don't have a winner in that fight. I just hope both of them have a great night and they come out healthy. And that's really what I hope for both of them. But a win for John Jones, first of all, he's undeniably the GOAT. No one can even hold a candle to what he's done in the game. But if he beats Stipe as well, then undeniably no one can question his legacy as the GOAT of like the greatest of all time. Has been, will be, and is current.
I love to hear it, champ, and God willing, it will be an amazing and historic night. As Conor and Eddie Alvarez was, this will also be another historic MSG night. Last few questions just before I let you go, champ. After your UFC debut, you took a trip back to Albania, back to your home city of Shkodër. How long were you out there for, and how did it feel just being back and just taking everything in?
Yeah, my family was there. Oh, this is another thing. So when I got the call, my dad had boarded the plane. My family was on the plane.
Oh.
And my dad calls me and he's like, yo, I'm getting off the plane right now. He's like, we're in our seat. He's like, I'm getting off. He's like, I can't miss your UFC debut. I was like, man, look, I understand, but I was like, it's fine. Just go to Albania, relax. Like, you know, he worked so hard. I was like, just go relax. You're with the family. You know, you can't leave them alone. I was like, I'm going to come after the fight. You know, no matter what happens, I'll come and I'll see you guys. So, you know, after the fight, obviously, I got back Sunday to New York. Sunday night, I booked a ticket and I left Monday morning. I was there for about 8-9 days. I just spent the rest of the time with them. We went all over Albania. You know, I was in Shkodër, which is my city. I went to Tehran, which is the capital. And I went to Pristina, which is the capital city of Kosovo. Mm-hmm. And I stayed with Capital T and them. He had his festival. So it was great, man. People stopping me all over, you know, saying how much they respect me and how I'm an icon for Albanians. People taking pictures, you know, it felt good, man. And it feels like that's my home. I feel at home there. Even though I was born and raised in New York, like just the people and the culture and the hospitality and knowing that's where my bloodline comes from, it meant a lot, you know, and especially to be there with my family and my brother. Like they were just so happy to see me happy and healthy. And, you know, it makes me emotional. I was so happy to be with them. It was something I'll never forget.
I love to hear it, Dennis. And last thing, or penultimate thing, should I say, just before I let you go. Honestly, man, you mean the world to me. You mean the world to our nation. I said again, I could go hours just talking about you, praising you, because it doesn't come as blowing smoke up someone's ass, respectfully. It is truth. It is, yeah, in the nicest way possible. I say again, what we have, and for our nations, man, people remember the war. People will never forget the war to this day. We see what Jark and Shaqiri done in the most respectful fashion. They done it for our people. They done it for those who died, those who shedded blood. We see it now. Kosovo national team played the other day. There's still racism in this day. And I don't want to go to that point, man, but I want to go to the point to say, you've put your bloodline on the map. You've put Dennis Buzukja on the map. Thank you, Dennis, and I can't wait for that one day when you win the UFC title and you parade it back home in Albania like Aljamain Sterling did for Jamaica. Last question, brother, just before I let you go. What can fans expect from you at MSG in NYC UFC 295?
Fans to expect from me is just war. If it comes down to a war, expect a war. I'm always going to go and fight with my heart. You're going to have to kill me to put me out. I've said it time and time again. But expect me to come to take this guy's head off in my hometown, representing everybody, representing my home, defending my home soil. Expect a knockout. I'm coming to knock this guy out, and I'm going to do it beautifully. And I'm saying it right now. This guy's going to sleep. I'm putting him out.
I love to hear it, ladies and gentlemen. UFC fighter Dennis Buzukja.
Everybody subscribe to Anything Blows. Nobody works harder than this man.